The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with hundreds of different voices. Tall crystalline beings from Zephyr Prime clicked their sharp fingers against marble tables. Massive bear-like creatures from Corvani space growled low conversations in their throats. Small bird-like delegates from the Outer Rim chirped in high-pitched tones that hurt most ears. At the far end of the chamber, almost forgotten in the corner, sat the newest members. 3 humans in simple dark suits looked tiny compared to the giants around them. Ambassador Sarah Chen kept her face calm as alien eyes stared at her people with obvious disgust. "The humans wish to speak," announced High Counselor Vextar, his crystal body catching the chamber's lights. His voice carried the tone someone might use when discussing an annoying insect. "Though I fail to see why creatures so recently discovered deserve our time." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Corvani representative, General Thokmas, let out a deep laugh that sounded like grinding stone. His massive form was covered in scars from countless battles across the galaxy. "Let the tiny ones speak," Thokmas said, his voice booming off the walls. "It will be amusing to hear what they think they can offer us." Ambassador Chen stood slowly. She was barely 5 feet tall, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. Around her, beings that could crush her with one hand watched with entertainment in their eyes. "Honored counselors," she began, her voice clear in the vast chamber. "Humanity requests full membership in this council. We wish to participate as equals in the decisions that shape our galaxy." The chamber erupted in laughter, not polite chuckling, but actual belly laughs from species that found the idea completely ridiculous. Several delegates fell from their chairs in their amusement. High Counselor Vexitar raised one crystalline hand for silence. "Equals?" he repeated as if tasting a strange new food. "Child species, you have been in space for less than 200 of your years. We have ruled the stars for millennia. Your entire planet produces less energy than one of our mining stations," added Counselor Zithara from the Hegemony Worlds. Her snake-like body coiled around her floating chair. "Your fastest ships take months to travel distances we cross in days." General Thokmas stood, his 8-foot frame casting shadows across the human delegation. "Your weapons are primitive. Your shields are weak. Your military numbers fewer than the crew of one Corvani dreadnought." He pointed one massive finger at Ambassador Chen. "You are insects pretending to be eagles." Ambassador Chen never flinched. "We bring unique perspectives and capabilities to this council. Our scientists have made discoveries that might benefit all member species." "Discoveries?" Vextar's laugh was like wind chimes in a hurricane. "You have barely learned to split atoms properly. Your computers are mechanical toys compared to quantum consciousness networks." The mocking continued for nearly an hour. Every human achievement was dismissed as cute but worthless. Every human request was met with condescending explanations of why children should not play with adult tools. Finally, High Counselor Vextar called for order. "The Council has heard the human request," he announced formally. "We have reached our decision." The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Chen remained standing, her hands folded behind her back. "Humanity is classified as a Category 3 developing species," Vextar declared. "You lack the technological, military, and cultural advancement required for Council membership. However, the Council recognizes that even primitive species can serve useful purposes." Murmurs of approval came from around the chamber. Several delegates nodded their massive heads. "Therefore," Vextar continued, "Earth is granted tributary status. You will provide the following to the Council within 30 standard cycles." A holographic display appeared above the chamber. Numbers and images filled the air, showing massive quantities of rare minerals, metals, and other resources. 10 million tons of processed lithium, 5 million tons of rare earth elements, 2 million tons of platinum group metals. The list continued for several minutes, each item representing years of Earth's total production. But the worst was saved for last. Additionally, General Thokmas announced with obvious pleasure, "Earth will provide 10 million human workers for assignment to Council projects. These workers will serve 20-year terms in mining operations, construction projects, and other manual labor as needed." The chamber erupted in pleased sounds. Clicks, growls, chirps, and other alien noises of approval filled the air. Ambassador Chen's voice cut through the noise. "And if we decline?" The chamber went quiet again. High Counselor Vextar's crystalline features seemed to sharpen. "Decline?" he repeated slowly. "What if humanity chooses not to accept tributary status?" Chen asked calmly. General Thokmas laughed, a sound like boulders falling down a mountain. Then you will face administrative correction, little human. The Council maintains order throughout the galaxy. Disobedient species learn quickly to follow proper procedures. Administrative correction, Chen repeated. Could you be more specific? Orbital bombardment of major population centers, Thokmas said casually as if discussing the weather. Seizure of your government facilities. Forced relocation of your leadership class. Standard procedures for bringing primitive worlds into compliance. Other delegates nodded agreement. This was apparently routine business for the Galactic Council. We have performed administrative correction on 47 worlds in the past century, added Councillor Zithara. Most required only minimal bombardment before accepting their proper place in galactic society. Ambassador Chen looked around the chamber. Hundreds of alien faces stared back at her with expressions ranging from boredom to amusement. Not one showed sympathy or concern for her species. I see, she said quietly. And how long do we have to consider this offer? 30 standard cycles, Vextar announced. Approximately 42 of your Earth days. The Council is generous with time allowances for primitive species to process complex decisions. More laughter rippled through the chamber. The idea that humans might need time to accept the obvious was apparently hilarious. Ambassador Chen bowed slightly. Then humanity will provide our answer within that time frame. She turned and walked toward the chamber's exit, her two companions following silently. Behind them, the Council delegates returned to their normal business, already forgetting about the tiny species from the third planet of an unremarkable star. 47 worlds, General Thokmas was saying to a group of military representatives, and not one required more than 3 days of bombardment to achieve full compliance. These humans will likely surrender after the first demonstration strike. If they possess any intelligence at all, agreed another delegate, though their request for equality suggests otherwise. High Counselor Vextar reviewed the resource demands on his personal display. The tribute requirements are quite reasonable, he noted. Even a primitive world should manage such basic extraction quotas. And 10 million workers will supplement our labor forces nicely, added a mining consortium representative. Humans appear sturdy enough for basic manual tasks. As the human delegation reached the chamber doors, Ambassador Chen paused and looked back once. The massive chamber continued its business as if nothing important had happened. Decisions affecting billions of lives were made with the same casual attention most species gave to choosing lunch. The doors closed behind the humans with a soft whisper. In 42 days, they would return with Earth's answer. The Council was confident they already knew what that answer would be. After all, what choice did such a primitive species really have? 38 days had passed since the Council's ultimatum. In the Great Chamber, High Counselor Vextar checked the chronometer display floating above his crystal desk. The humans had 4 more days to respond, though everyone expected their answer much sooner. Still no word from the primitive world? General Thokmas asked as he entered the chamber. His massive boots echoed off the marble floors. Nothing, Vextar replied with mild annoyance, though delay tactics are common among inferior species. They often need time to accept reality. The chamber doors opened with their usual soft whisper. Ambassador Chen walked in alone this time, carrying a small device that looked like a simple data pad. Her expression was as calm as always. Ah, the little human returns, Vextar announced to the gathering delegates. 4 days early. Excellent. Your species shows wisdom in accepting council authority quickly. Ambassador Chen stopped in the center of the chamber. Around her, dozens of massive alien forms looked down with satisfaction. Finally, another primitive world would take its proper place in the galactic order. Honored counselors, Chen began in her clear voice, humanity has carefully considered your generous offer. Generous indeed, muttered Counselor Zithara. Most species receive far harsher tribute demands. After extensive discussion with our leadership, Chen continued, Earth must respectfully decline tributary status. The chamber went silent. Not the expectant quiet of before, but shocked silence. Several delegates leaned forward, certain they had misheard. Decline? Vextar repeated slowly. His crystalline features shifted color from clear to deep red. You cannot decline, child species. This is not a negotiation. Nevertheless, Chen said calmly, humanity chooses independence. We request renewed discussions about equal membership in this council. The silence stretched for several more seconds. Then General Thokmas began laughing. His deep voice boomed off the chamber walls as other delegates joined in. Soon the entire chamber echoed with sounds of alien amusement. Independence, Thokmas roared. The insects think they can fly with the eagles. Clearly this species lacks basic reasoning capability, added another delegate. They cannot comprehend the reality of their situation. Bextar raised his hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, his voice carried deadly calm. Perhaps the humans did not understand our previous explanation. General Thokmas, please clarify the consequences of their choice. The massive Corvani general stepped forward. His scarred face showed predatory satisfaction. Gladly, High Counselor. He turned to face Ambassador Chen directly. Little human, your world has 3 major population centers: New York, London, and Tokyo. Each contains roughly 8 million of your kind. His voice was casual, as if discussing farming techniques. Tomorrow, my fleet will demonstrate the price of disobedience. Chen's expression never changed. You intend to attack civilian targets? I intend to provide education, Thokmas corrected. 3 cities will be reduced to radioactive craters. The survivors will understand that resistance is futile. And if we still refuse, Chen asked, then we will eliminate 6 more cities. Then 12. Then 24. Thokmas shrugged his massive shoulders. Eventually your species will learn proper respect, or your species will cease to exist. The outcome matters little to the council. Murmurs of approval came from around the chamber. This was standard procedure after all. Primitive worlds always required firm guidance before accepting their place. I see, Chen said quietly. She looked around the chamber one more time, her gaze stopping briefly on each major delegation. Then Earth will prepare for the consequences of our choice. She turned and walked toward the exit without another word. Behind her, delegates were already discussing technical details of the coming demonstration. The Corvani 7th Fleet should be sufficient, someone was saying. 3 dreadnoughts and supporting vessels. Orbital bombardment is most effective, another voice added. Quick, efficient, and highly visible to the remaining population. The chamber doors closed behind Ambassador Chen with their usual soft whisper. 6 hours later, General Thokmas stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist. Around him, tactical displays showed the approach to the small blue world that had dared to defy the Council. Fleet status report, he commanded. 3 dreadnoughts, 6 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, all systems operational. His aide reported crisply. We are 12 hours from Earth orbit. Excellent. Thokmas studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. The human homeworld looked peaceful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. Soon parts of it would glow with radioactive fire. Sir, the communications officer called out. We are receiving a transmission from the human world. Put it through, Thokmas ordered. Let us hear their surrender. Ambassador Chen's image appeared on the main screen. She stood in what looked like a simple office, Earth's blue sky visible through windows behind her. General Thokmas, she said formally. Humanity wishes to make one final appeal for peaceful resolution. Thokmas laughed. Now you understand reality, little human. Are you prepared to accept tributary status? No, Chen replied calmly. We are prepared to offer the Council one last chance to withdraw your fleet and recognize Earth's sovereignty. The bridge fell silent. Even Thokmas stopped laughing. You threaten me? He asked incredulously. Your entire world has no weapons that could scratch my ship's shields. Nevertheless, Chen said, we encourage you to reconsider. Violence benefits no one. Violence benefits the strong, Thokmas snarled. Tomorrow your species learns this truth. Transmission ended. Chen's image disappeared. Around the bridge, Corvani officers shook their heads in amazement at human stupidity. 6 hours to Earth orbit, the navigation officer reported. Begin target acquisition on the 3 primary cities, Thokmas ordered. We will begin with the one called New York. Maximum yield weapons, complete destruction. The fleet moved steadily toward Earth through the darkness of space. Long-range sensors showed no human ships approaching to intercept. No defensive satellites powered up to challenge them. The planet seemed helpless before the approaching storm. Sir, the sensor officer called out as they entered Earth's solar system. I'm detecting some unusual readings from the planet's surface. Explain, Thokmas commanded. Energy signatures I don't recognize. Very faint but scattered across multiple continents. The officer frowned at his displays. Could be industrial facilities powering up. Factories will not save them, Thokmas said dismissively. Continue approach. As the Corvani fleet drew closer to Earth, the unusual energy readings grew stronger. Sensors detected power sources that didn't match human technological profiles in Council databases, but the readings were still too weak to represent any real threat. 4 hours to bombardment range, Tactical reported. Prepare orbital strike packages, Thokmas ordered. Target: New York City. Maximum destruction. The great ships of the Corvani 7th Fleet moved into position above Earth like predators surrounding prey. Soon the galaxy would have another example of what happened to species that defied the Council's will. Below them, the blue world turned peacefully in space, its cities glittering like jewels in the darkness. Soon 3 of those lights would go dark forever, and the humans would finally understand their place in the galactic order. General Thokmas smiled as he watched the targeting displays lock onto the unsuspecting city below. Tomorrow the Council would receive recordings of this demonstration to share with other primitive worlds. A reminder that defiance brought only death. 1 hour to optimal firing position, Tactical announced. Excellent, Thokmas replied. Begin final targeting sequence. The orbital bombardment began at exactly 600 Earth Standard Time. 3 massive energy beams lanced down from the Corvani fleet, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a mountain. They struck New York, London, and Tokyo simultaneously, creating 3 expanding balls of nuclear fire that could be seen from orbit. General Thokmas watched the destruction with satisfaction. Where 3 great cities had stood moments before, only glowing craters remained. The death toll was instant and absolute. 2.3 million humans dead in the first 30 seconds. Excellent targeting, he announced to his bridge crew. Record everything for transmission to the Council. They will want detailed documentation of this demonstration. Across Earth, other cities received the recordings within minutes. The message was simple and brutal. Surrender now or face the same fate. The Corvani fleet remained in orbit, weapons charged and ready to eliminate more population centers if required. On the planet's surface, rescue teams rushed toward the impact sites, though everyone knew no one could have survived such devastation. The craters were miles wide and glowed with residual heat that would last for years. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving another transmission from the humans. Already? Thokmas asked with amusement. Their surrender comes faster than expected. Ambassador Chen's image appeared on the main screen again. She stood in the same simple office, but now smoke was visible through the windows behind her. Her expression remained perfectly calm despite the horror that had just been visited upon her species. General Thokmas, she said formally, humanity acknowledges that you have killed 2.3 million civilians in an unprovoked attack on non-military targets. Indeed we have, Thokmas replied with pride. And we will kill many more if your species continues this foolish resistance. Are you prepared to surrender? No, Chen said quietly. We are prepared to respond. Before Thokmas could reply, alarms began screaming across his ship's bridge. Red warning lights flashed as tactical displays lit up with dozens of new contacts. Report, Thokmas roared over the noise. Unknown ships decloaking throughout the system, the sensor officer shouted. Massive energy signatures. I count 40, 60. Over 100 vessels. On the main screen, space around Earth filled with sleek ships that hadn't been there moments before. They were smaller than the Corvani dreadnoughts, but far more numerous, and their design was completely unknown to Council databases. Human ships? Thokmas asked incredulously. Impossible. Intelligence reports showed no significant human fleet. Sir, Tactical called out urgently, I'm reading weapons signatures unlike anything in our databases. And sir, some of these ships are already behind us. Thokmas spun to look at the tactical display. Human vessels had somehow appeared on all sides of his fleet, moving with impossible speed and coordination. The Corvani ships were surrounded. How did they? He began, then stopped. On the communication screen, Ambassador Chen was speaking again. General, she said calmly, you have committed an act of war against a sovereign species. Under galactic law, Earth now has the right to respond with proportional force. Proportional? Thokmas snarled. Your entire species lacks the technology to threaten even one of my ships. You are mistaken, Chen replied. You have been observing carefully selected information for the past 2 years. Humanity has been preparing for this possibility since our first contact with the Council. New alarms sounded as more human ships appeared from impossible angles. Some seemed to drop out of hyperspace using FTL technology that shouldn't exist. Others simply materialized as if they had been invisible moments before. "Sir," the sensor officer called out desperately, "these readings don't make sense. Some of these ships are showing power outputs exceeding our own dreadnoughts." Thokmas stared at the tactical display in growing shock. The human fleet wasn't just large, it was positioned with strategic precision that spoke of detailed planning and superior coordination. Every Corvani ship was targeted by multiple human vessels. "Explain this," he demanded, turning back to the communication screen. Ambassador Chen's expression never changed. "While you saw a primitive species struggling with basic space travel, we were learning everything about your technology, your tactics, and your weaknesses. Every trade agreement, every diplomatic meeting, every casual interaction was an intelligence-gathering operation." "Impossible," Thokmas breathed. "The ships you observe are not newly built," Chen continued. "They were constructed in hidden facilities and deployed to strategic positions throughout Council space over the past 18 months. We have been watching and waiting." On the tactical display, the human ships began moving into attack formations. Their coordination was flawless, suggesting communication and command systems far beyond what the Council believed humans possessed. "You want to see our technology?" Chen asked. "Very well." One of the human ships, no larger than a Corvani destroyer, fired a single beam at the massive dreadnought Stone Crusher. The weapon looked almost insignificant compared to the massive target. The dreadnought simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, shields up and weapons charged. The next moment there was empty space and a rapidly expanding cloud of particles. The Corvani bridge fell silent except for the sound of alarms and shocked breathing. "That was a demonstration," Chen said calmly. "Our actual weapons are considerably more destructive." What do you want?" Thokmas asked, his voice shaking for the first time in his military career. "Justice," Chen replied. "You murdered 2.3 million civilians. Under human military doctrine, you are now classified as war criminals. Your fleet will be destroyed and you will face trial for your crimes. You cannot—" Thokmas began, then stopped as he looked at the tactical display. Over 200 human ships now surrounded his fleet. Each one was apparently capable of destroying his most powerful vessels with single shots. "Furthermore," Chen continued, "humanity formally declares war on the Corvani Empire and any council species that supported this attack. We will not be enslaved and we will not be terrorized. The council will never," Thokmas started. "The council will do exactly what we tell them to do," Chen interrupted. "General, you made a critical error. You assumed that a species you called primitive was actually primitive. You confused peaceful intentions with weakness." On the screen behind her, the smoke from the destroyed cities was still visible, but now it was joined by new lights in the sky. Human ships moving through Earth's atmosphere with casual disregard for what the Council believed was possible. "Sir," the tactical officer whispered, "the human ships are charging weapons." "Wait," Thokmas shouted. "We can negotiate." "The Council will reconsider your status. The time for negotiation ended when you murdered our civilians," Chen said coldly. "However, I am authorized to accept the surrender of any individual ships whose crews wish to face trial, rather than death." Around the bridge, Corvani officers looked at each other with growing panic. The fleet that had seemed so powerful minutes before was now trapped by an enemy they had never seen coming. "You have 60 seconds to decide," Chen announced. "Surrender or be destroyed. Those are your only options." General Thokmas looked at his tactical display one more time. The human ships were positioned perfectly, their weapons charged and ready. His own fleet, which had seemed so mighty that morning, was helpless before an enemy that had been hiding in plain sight. Behind him, he could hear his officers making quiet communications with their families, sending final messages before the end. The great Corvani 7th Fleet, conqueror of 47 worlds, was about to be destroyed by a species they had dismissed as insects. "Time is up," Ambassador Chen announced. The human ships opened fire. The destruction of the Corvani 7th Fleet took exactly 14 minutes. Ship after ship simply vanished under the precise fire of human weapons that shouldn't have existed. General Thokmas watched his flagship's shields fail in the final moments, then saw nothing at all. Across the galaxy, the news spread with shocking speed. The mighty Corvani fleet, sent to discipline a primitive world, had been completely annihilated. Not a single ship escaped. Not a single survivor was recovered. But that was only the beginning. In the emergency session of the Galactic Council, High Counselor Vextar paced frantically before the assembled delegates. His crystalline form was dark red with stress, colors shifting rapidly as new reports arrived every few minutes. "The humans have struck Corvani Prime," announced a military aide, his voice shaking. "The planetary defense fleet? It's gone. Completely destroyed." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Corvani Prime was the most heavily defended world in their empire, protected by over 300 warships and orbital defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets. "How is this possible?" demanded Counselor Zithara. "Our intelligence showed the humans had fewer than 50 ships total." "Our intelligence was wrong," Vextar said grimly. "They have been deceiving us from the moment of first contact." Another aide rushed into the chamber. "High Counselor, the Zephyrian 4th Battle Group has been engaged near Christos. Admiral Krell reports that human ships appeared from nowhere and speak," Vextar commanded. "They destroyed his entire fleet in minutes, sir. The Admiral's final transmission said the human weapons were unlike anything in our databases. They cut through our shields like they weren't there." The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Delegates who had been laughing at human weakness days before now shouted over each other in fear. "How many ships do they have?" someone demanded. "Where are they getting this technology? Why didn't our spies detect this?" High Counselor Vextar called for silence, but it took several minutes for the chaos to die down. When it finally did, another aide was waiting with more reports. "Sir," the aide said quietly, "we're receiving casualty reports from 17 different systems. The humans are conducting simultaneous attacks across a front spanning half the galaxy." "Impossible," Vextar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Furthermore," the aide continued, "they're not targeting civilian populations. Every attack has been against military installations, defense fleets, and command centers. No civilian casualties reported." This information sent a different kind of chill through the chamber. A species that could coordinate attacks across such vast distances, that could strike with such precision while avoiding innocent lives, was demonstrating capabilities far beyond what any council race possessed. "They're following galactic law," Counselor Zithara whispered. "They're conducting a legitimate military response to our attack on their civilians. Legal or not," Vextar snarled, "they must be stopped. Deploy the Grand Fleet. Every available ship from every member species. We will overwhelm them with numbers." "Sir," another aide interrupted, looking pale, "I'm afraid that may not be possible." "Explain." "The Grand Fleet is scattered. Human ships have appeared in 16 different systems where our major fleets were stationed. They're not trying to hold territory. They're systematically hunting down our naval forces." On the chamber's main display, a galactic map appeared showing the scope of human operations. Red dots marked attacks across thousands of light years, each one precisely timed and coordinated. It was military planning on a scale that should have been impossible for a recently contacted species. "They're not fighting randomly," observed a military strategist from the hegemony worlds. "Look at the pattern. They're targeting our shipyards, our supply bases, our command centers. They're systematically dismantling our ability to wage war. And they're doing it faster than we can respond," added another delegate. "By the time our reinforcements arrive at an attack site, the humans are gone and moving on to their next target." An urgent communication signal flashed on the main display. Vextar accepted it, and the scared face of Admiral Vorth appeared on screen. "High Counselor," Admiral Vorth said urgently, "the humans have found our hidden base at Nexus 7. How they located it, I don't know, but they're demanding our surrender." "Fight them," Vextar commanded. "Nexus 7 has enough firepower to destroy a dozen fleets." "Sir," Admiral Vorth replied, "they've disabled our weapons without firing a shot. Some kind of electronic warfare system that shut down every offensive system we have. We're helpless." Before Vextar could respond, a new voice came through the communication channel. It was calm, professional, and unmistakably human. "Admiral Vorth, this is Captain Sarah Martinez of the UESS Retribution. You have 60 seconds to evacuate your facility before we destroy it. This is your only warning. You cannot attack a research facility," Admiral Vorth protested. There are scientists here. Your facility was designing weapons for use against civilian populations, the human captain replied coldly. We have accessed your databases. Your research violates 17 different galactic warfare conventions, but the evacuation will take hours. Then you should begin immediately. 55 seconds remaining. The transmission cut to static. Admiral Vorth turned back to face the council, panic clear in his expression. High Counselor, what are your orders? Vextar stared at the screen in shock. The humans had not only found a secret research base that wasn't on any official records, they had somehow accessed classified databases and were now sitting in judgment of Council military projects. Evacuate, he said quietly. Sir, evacuate the facility, Vextar said louder. Save the personnel. The transmission ended. On the chamber's tactical display, Nexus 7 showed as a bright flash, then disappeared from all sensors. They gave us a warning, Counselor Zithara said in a stunned voice. They could have simply destroyed the facility, but they warned our people first. They're not fighting like barbarians, another delegate observed. They're fighting like a highly advanced civilization with strict military ethics. More reports continued arriving. Human fleets were appearing throughout Council space, but they weren't conquering territory or enslaving populations. They were systematically destroying military assets while carefully avoiding civilian casualties. Sir, yet another aide announced. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. Ambassador Chen requests to address the Council. Now she wants to talk, Vextar said bitterly. Put her through. Ambassador Chen appeared on the main screen. She stood in the same simple office as before, but now the windows behind her showed a view of space where human ships moved in perfect formation around Earth. Honored counselors, she said formally. Humanity wishes to discuss terms for ending hostilities. The chamber erupted again. Delegates shouted over each other, some demanding surrender, others calling for continued resistance. You have destroyed our fleets, Vextar accused. You have violated Council space. You have attacked sovereign worlds. We have responded proportionally to your unprovoked attack on our civilians, Chen replied calmly. Under galactic law, our actions are completely justified. Proportionally? Vextar shrieked. You have crippled our military forces across half the galaxy. General Thokmas killed 2.3 million civilians, Chen said, her voice growing cold. We have killed fewer than 10,000 military personnel, and only those who refused opportunities to surrender. The number sent a chill through the chamber. In their desperate resistance, they had lost hundreds of ships and dozens of military installations. But the humans had been precise enough to keep casualties minimal. What do you want? Vextar asked finally. Justice, Chen replied. And respect? She paused, looking around the chamber at the alien faces staring back at her. The same faces that had laughed at her species just days before. Humanity will accept nothing less than full council membership with equal status, she continued. We will also require reparations for the civilians you murdered, and trials for those responsible for ordering the attack. And if we refuse? Vextar asked, though his voice lacked any real defiance. Chen's expression never changed. Then we will continue our response until the Galactic Council no longer exists. Behind her, through the office windows, human ships continued their silent patrol of Earth's space. Ships that had appeared from nowhere and demonstrated technological superiority that still seemed impossible. The chamber fell completely silent as the full implications sank in. The species they had tried to enslave had just become the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 500 delegates from across the galaxy sat in absolute silence as Ambassador Chen walked slowly to the center of the floor. Her footsteps echoed off the marble walls like gunshots. Behind her, the massive display screens showed the devastating truth. Real-time feeds from across Council space revealed the complete destruction of their military might. Burning shipyards, disabled defense stations, and the wreckage of once mighty fleets floating in space like forgotten toys. High Counselor Vextar's crystalline form had turned completely black with stress. Around him, delegates who had once commanded respect throughout the galaxy now cowered in their seats like frightened children. Honored counselors, Ambassador Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. 48 hours ago, you attacked Earth without provocation. You murdered 2.3 million civilians as a demonstration of power. No one spoke. Several delegates couldn't even meet her eyes. You believed humanity was weak? Chen continued. You saw our peaceful approach to diplomacy and mistook it for helplessness. You observed our simple technology and assumed we were primitive. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces that had once laughed at her requests for equality. You were wrong. On the display screens, new images appeared. Human ships moving through space with impossible grace. Weapons that could vaporize dreadnoughts with single shots. Technology that defied every scientific principle the Council thought they understood. While you saw struggling colonists barely capable of interplanetary travel, Chen said, we were watching you, learning your weaknesses, studying your tactics, preparing for this day. Counselor Zithara finally found her voice. How? She whispered. How did you hide this from us? Chen turned to face the snake-like delegate. Because you only saw what you expected to see. Every human trade mission that seemed desperate for basic resources was actually gathering intelligence. Every diplomatic request that seemed naive was testing your responses. Every piece of primitive technology we showed you was carefully designed to reinforce your assumptions. But the ships, stammered a delegate from the outer rim. Where did they come from? We've been building them for 60 years, Chen replied calmly. Hidden facilities in asteroid belts, mobile construction platforms in deep space, automated shipyards and systems you never bothered to explore. While you were conquering primitive worlds, we were preparing for the day you would try to conquer us. The scope of human deception was staggering. For decades, they had maintained the perfect illusion of weakness while secretly building the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. The sleeper ships you observed leaving Earth, Chen continued, were not desperate colonists fleeing a dying world. They were advance forces taking position throughout your space. By the time you attacked our cities, we had assets within striking distance of every major council installation. General Vextar found his voice at last. What do you want from us? Chen's expression never changed. What we wanted from the beginning. Equality, respect, recognition as a sovereign species with full rights under galactic law. You have it, Vextar said quickly. Full council membership, equal status, whatever you require. That is insufficient, Chen replied coldly. The chamber stirred nervously. If equal membership wasn't enough, what did the humans want? General Thokmas and his fleet are dead, Chen continued. But they were not acting alone. Every council member who voted to support the attack on Earth shares responsibility for those 2.3 million deaths. She gestured to the display screens, which now showed detailed records of the council session where the decision had been made. Every vote was recorded, every delegate's position clearly documented. The Corvani Empire will pay reparations to the families of every victim, Chen announced. 50 billion credits per civilian death. Total payment, 115 trillion galactic credits. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The amount was staggering, enough to bankrupt even the wealthy Corvani worlds. Furthermore, Chen continued, 17 council species voted to support the attack. Each will pay additional reparations of 10 trillion credits to be used for humanitarian aid throughout the galaxy. That's impossible, protested a delegate from the manufacturing worlds. No species has that kind of wealth. Then you will work until you do, Chen replied without emotion. Your military budgets will be redirected to reparation payments. Your luxury expenditures will cease. Your ruling classes will learn what it means to sacrifice for the consequences of their decisions. The chamber erupted in protests, but Chen continued speaking over the noise. Additionally, every species that supported the attack will surrender their military vessels to human command. They will be rebuilt and redistributed to the peaceful species you have been oppressing for centuries. You cannot disarm entire civilizations, Vextar protested. We can and we will, Chen replied. The same way you have been disarming primitive worlds for millennia. The same way you plan to disarm Earth. The protests died down as the full implications became clear. The human response wasn't just military retaliation, it was complete restructuring of galactic power. However, Chen said, her voice softening slightly, humanity does not wish to rule through fear. We offer an alternative. Hope flickered in alien eyes around the chamber. Peaceful species that were coerced into supporting the attack may retain their sovereignty by formally apologizing and implementing democratic reforms. Your people will be allowed to choose new leadership in free elections. Several delegates began whispering urgently among themselves. The chance to escape complete subjugation was more than many had dared hope for. What about the major powers? Asked Counselor Zithara quietly. The Corvani, the Zephyrians, the hegemony worlds. Chen's expression hardened again. They will serve as examples. Their military forces are already destroyed. Their governments will be replaced with democratic institutions supervised by human observers. Their resources will be redirected to repairing the damage they have caused throughout the galaxy. For how long? Vextar asked desperately. Until they prove they can be trusted with power again, Chen replied. Perhaps a generation. Perhaps a century. That depends entirely on how quickly they learn to value peace over conquest. She paused, looking around the chamber one more time. The once mighty council that had ruled the galaxy through fear and violence was now completely at her mercy. There is one final requirement, Chen announced. This council will be dissolved. In its place, we will establish a true democratic assembly where every species has equal representation, regardless of military strength or economic power. And if we refuse? Vextar asked, though his voice held no real defiance. Chen gestured to the display screens which now showed human fleets positioned throughout council space. Ships that could appear anywhere at any time, armed with weapons that made resistance futile. You will not refuse, she said simply, because you no longer have the power to refuse. The silence that followed was absolute. 500 representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations sat in complete quiet, absorbing the reality of their new situation. Finally, Vextar spoke in a broken whisper. We accept your terms, Chen nodded formally. The transition will begin immediately. Human supervisors will arrive at your capital worlds within the week to oversee the establishment of democratic governments. She turned and began walking toward the chamber doors. Her mission complete. Ambassador, called out a small voice from the back of the chamber. It was a delegate from one of the minor species, one of the peaceful worlds that had been forced to provide tribute for generations. Chen stopped and turned back. Thank you, the delegate said simply. For the first time since entering the chamber, Ambassador Chen smiled. The galaxy belongs to all of us, she said. It's time it was governed that way. She walked through the great doors of the chamber, leaving behind the stunned silence of beings who had learned too late that strength comes in many forms, and the greatest strength of all is the wisdom to use it with restraint. Outside the chamber, human ships continued their silent patrol of council space, guardians of a new age where peace would be enforced not through fear, but through the promise that those who choose violence will face consequences they never imagined. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity. Now it would learn to live in peace.